Hey guys, this is Jay Calder with Jay Unboxing here giving you a personal prediction for Danny Jacobs versus John Ryder. And as always, this is just my take. Your personal predictions can be left down in the comments section below. Love to hear all your thoughts, your picks, your bets down there. Love to hear them all. A little bit of fight info here. As mentioned, we have Jacobs versus Ryder. This is taking place at the Alexandra Palace in London, England, airing live on DAZN in the super middleweight division with no title on the line. It's a very interesting sort of crossroads battle in a lot of ways between a former world champion in Danny Jacobs and a former world title challenger in John Ryder, a guy who's kind of always come up a little bit short, but in his most recent outings, more or less has kind of come out of his shell a bit as a fighter, and as a super middleweight has seemed to grow into the division a bit more than he did at middleweight, and has had a decent run versus Jacobs, who of course has had probably the better overall run, but as of late has seemed to show some signs of perhaps slowing down. So in that respect, it is very much that kind of crossroads battle, which is why you see such close odds for a fight between, again, a guy who has kind of shown up short in most fights and another guy who's been a world champion in the past. So it's a very compelling fight. So without much more, let's get into breaking this one down. Now, for Jacobs to win, I think he needs to find a home for the left hook. In my personal opinion, I think that's going to be the most important punch for him outside of the jab, which we'll get to in a bit. But the reason I think that is because Ryder has a tendency to keep his guard down on that side a little bit more, leaving an opening for that left hook. And of course, Jacobs has a decent hook himself. This also, of course, is going to work to set up the right hand, which Jacobs is looking to land. It's also one of those shots, again, that can land because you're throwing jabs, which we will get to in a bit as mentioned. So it's just a really overall positive shot for Jacobs that's only going to create good openings and good things for him in this fight. And if he can get it going early and often, he will have some success on the night. As mentioned, don't abandon the jab. That's the next step for me. There are times when Jacobs can get a little bit too power hungry and look to get his guy out of there, and that can happen a lot, especially as fighters do age and do tend to get a little bit longer in the tooth. They're trying to land those shots they know they can land to put their opponent out. Now, again, he might have the power to do that. He might have the ability to put those shots together, but he doesn't want to abandon that jab. That jab, again, can set up the left hook. It can set up the right hand he's looking to land, and everything can kind of work around that jab. And then those shots become much easier to land, and of course, as a result, you'll have much better success. If he abandons that shot, it becomes more of a, just an out and out fist fight, and that gives Ryder some more opportunities than Jacob should be looking to give him. Ryder, his best shot, in my opinion, is if that fight gets a little more rough, a little more aggressive. So for Jacobs, you have no reason to try and give him those opportunities. And finally, zap the confidence out of Ryder. And again, this sort of all ties into this. Ultimately, I think it's can Jacobs really land the cleaner, crisp shots while making sure Ryder doesn't get going. That's ultimately Jacobs' game plan, in my opinion. And one of the ways he can ensure that he has the best chance of fulfilling that plan is by zapping that confidence. And one of the ways he can do this, of course, is by making sure he's ready to deal with the inside fighting of Ryder, who's going to look to try to come in and fight. One of the ways he can do that is with clinching and holding. Another way he can do is by turning. He can also use his good footwork. He has decent footwork, does Jacobs, to kind of, again, just maneuver himself into positions where it's harder for Ryder to unleash. And I think these sorts of things will ultimately buy Jacobs some time and allow for him to get that jab going, circle the way he wants to, be aggressive when he wants to, and just force the fight to really be dictated by his pace and his concerns, as opposed to letting the sort of steamrolling confidence of Ryder take over the fight, when obviously that's not going to be Jacobs' best bet. Now, for Ryder to win, I think he needs to take the center of the ring. I mean, quite the opposite of what you're looking for if you're Jacobs, of course. You want to make sure you take the center of that ring. You want to press the action a bit more. You want to get going. You want to build yourself into the fight. Again, maybe if you're looking at them pound for pound at their best, Jacobs might be considered a better fighter than Ryder. I think that's probably what most people will say. That might not be the Jacobs he's facing, but he doesn't want to, really test that theory out in the opening first, second, or third round. He wants to build himself into the fight and make sure that when Jacobs is at his most crisp, that Ryder is kind of feeling him out and making sure that he's not giving him too much. Then as he continues to build into it, take that center of the ring, press a little bit more, jab in there, throw those power shots and try to force the fight out of an older fighter that may not want to have such a grueling encounter. That, I think, will give Ryder his best chance for success. I would also advise corner, don't chase. This is important because, again, when you get into this sort of role of the stalker, the predator, whatever you want to call it, you can oftentimes have these categories, this category rather, divided by two. It's those that chase and it's those that corner. If you're chasing, it's when you follow. It's when you're on the outside of the wrong foot and you're always letting them escape through that back door and you're trying to play catch up the entire fight. That's obviously not what Ryder is looking to do. He needs to do more of cornering. And that means is you're, of course, taking that back step and you're forcing them into those areas where they have to kind of stand and fight and give you your best chance for success. Again, this is simple things like footwork. You don't have to be the fastest and the most fleet-footed, but you have to make sure that you're putting your feet in a position to cut him off, to make sure that he doesn't have the escape route, to make sure that he has to stand and fight a bit more. And as long as you're able to angle him those ways, you can shepherd him into those corners or against the ropes, let go of some of your power shots, and make it more of a fist fight like Ryder's looking to do, which of course will give him his best chance for success. And of course, I would say set up the straight right hand. While you're looking to have a more grueling encounter, maybe more of a hardcore fight, so to speak, if you're a Ryder, you don't want to do this without any sort of sophistication. You want to set some shots up. Again, your footwork's important in terms of chasing. You're looking to take the center of the ring. That implies that you have to have a game plan here. You can't just run into the ring and hope for the best, so to speak. One of the ways in which you can do that is by making sure you're setting up your best shot. And in Ryder's case, I believe that to be his straight right hand. This is simple, though. It's as simple as just throwing a jab. It's as simple as making sure you're lining them up. Make sure your foot's on the outside. This way, you have the best chance of lining that shot up and getting it there quick, fast, and without as much of a chance of him being able to prepare for it. Don't wind up, don't try to line these things up too far out, don't try to rush in, head over your feet. I mean, you're just going to walk into trouble if you're doing that. Set the shot up and allow for yourself to have the best chance to succeed, and make sure that you're throwing from positions and areas where you're able to have some defensive responsibility and where you're able to set up the shots in a cool, calm, and collected manner. Now, while a minor upset isn't out of the question, in my personal opinion, I do think Jacobs will have enough left in the tank to fend off a well-prepared and hungry John Ryder. I think Jacobs starts fresh and uses the jab and some movement to set himself up and kind of establish himself. However, I do feel Ryder will have some successful moments in the round, especially moving forward with that aggression, kind of in those middle frames. Jacobs will score well with the left hook and the jab as it gets closer, and he'll also have that right hand coming in. But again, the pressure will keep coming and the scores will be close. Ryder will, again, land some of those shots. He might even have some shots that make Jacobs have some pause here and there. Ultimately, down the stretch, I think Jacob uses his crisper shots and his slightly better defense to score enough to earn a close decision, because his style might just be more suited for that. He's, again, a little bit of a cleaner fighter and a cleaner puncher, that it might be easier to score those rounds for him. And as a result, my pick is pretty simple here. Danny Jacobs via split or majority decision. Now, the betting odds here, again, are pretty close. While Jacobs is a favorite, he's kind of a 1.5 to 1 favorite here at minus 165, and you have Ryder at plus 130. Again, they're pretty close, all things considered. To be honest, you can kind of convince yourself to make either bet here. Nothing is really such a bad take. I think this is a close fight, so it's really difficult to say, well, maybe sometimes you'll have the betting odds be much closer than you really think the fight is, and so you can encourage yourself to make these sort of bets confidently. I don't know about this because I am curious myself as to what Jacobs has left, and I'm curious as to who the real Ryder is. Is he the one that showed up in his last fight against Guy where he looked troubled by someone pretty limited, or is he the guy who showed up against Callum Smith when he was super middleweight champion of the world and possibly won that fight? It's concerning to me when I can't tell you what guy is showing up in either corner in this case. That being said, if you feel confident about either guy, you really have some decent odds here to play with. I probably will pick something more like an over, if I had an over-under that I thought was a decent little pick there, because I don't really see either guy being stopped. I don't know if I think Ryder has quite enough power at 168, nor do I think that he has maybe the nuance to stop Jacobs. Jacobs probably is a good survivor if he needs to be. And again, if Jacobs was the Jacobs of old, I might pick him to stop, but in this case, I'm just not sure about that. In any event, it's kind of hard to say with these odds because you just don't know who's showing up, but it does make for some interesting bets, and would love to hear all those down in the comments section as well. In any event, my prediction record heading into the weekend now for this year is 5-0-0 with 2 exact. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts, predictions, bets, like I said, so on and so forth. Who do you got in this one? It's a pretty interesting little kind of tear up here that I think is kind of going under the radar a little bit because it's a relatively slow weekend, but it should be a fun one. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that as well. Please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter at jcalderon_JOB. And you can email me at junboxing@gmail.com. Would love to hear from you there. Also, be sure to check out junboxing.com for schedule, results, betting odds, rankings, and more. Just did a massive overhaul of the schedule, so you can check that out. It's very detailed, a lot of betting odds there as well. Check all that out. And as always, until next time.